Hi, and welcome to another episode of Money Talk. Today, I have a really, really cool guest. Now, some of you that listen out here have thought about starting a business, wondered how in the world do you get a business started? Do you have to do a side hustle? Do you have to, do you have to leave your day gig? Well, I've got all kinds of questions that were going to be answered by my special guest, LeaAnn Fuller. So I've got two requests right now, and that is if you like what you see and you hear, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with people. Like it, share it, subscribe to this channel. And my second request is stay tuned. I'll be right back. Linda gave me the courage, the confidence to move forward.
And after I was finished with Linda Kaye's training, I was at the next level.
It's Linda Kaye. But when you trust that piece of you that says, I got something to give, I have something to say, you know you've got something to do.
Get on your feet, shake your hands in the air. Welcome to the stage, Linda Kaye.
Well, as I promised, we're going to have some really good conversation today about how in the world do you get your business started when you have been very, very busy keeping one business going? Or maybe you've thought about leaving that job and you really don't know how to quite leave it without saying, hey, don't let the door hit. Well, no, you wouldn't say that. You really want to keep your income going, right? And you want to keep that cash flow coming in. And so one of the things that we as entrepreneurs frequently think, I don't have time to do my books. I don't have time to really look at these reports. And if you've got a bookkeeper that's already doing your things, then are you looking at where the money is going as well as the money that's coming in? Because when you understand those pieces of it, you're going to have a better understanding of how long will it take you to get to where you want to go. So today, joining me, I want to welcome to the stage LeaAnn Fuller. LeaAnn, welcome.
Hey guys, how are you? I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm delighted. So, LeaAnn, I think that for the audience, it would be really helpful for them to understand where have you been in your career and where is your career going?
So I have about 25 years of accounting experience. When I left my corporate job, I was the office manager of accounting office for about 8. At one point, I think we might have been up to 11 hospitality companies, which were hotels, restaurants, that kind of thing.
Now, that's a lot of bookkeeping because people come and go in hospitality, right?
So, yes.
Yes. So you got very familiar with RevPAR and all the other vernacular that goes along with hospitality, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So there was a big transition and I kept telling myself in July, I'm leaving. I went through some coach training through Coach U. That is where my heart was leading me was coaching and empowering women. And I kept saying, in July, I'm leaving. July of one year came and gone, then the next year. Well, as it turns out, the following July, there was a big transition. And I could have gone with the old company, the new company, or out on my own. And I finally said, you know what? It's time to take that leap. I kept saying July. I just didn't say which July. So,
it's a funny thing about intention, right? Because we can say, I really am going to do it this time. I'm really going to do it. I've had it up to here with this. And then we don't set that goal. Talk to me how important is setting that goal and along with setting your intention.
So really setting a goal, if you don't have the intention and a plan behind the goal, it's really just kind of a dream, isn't it? If you don't actually set that plan in place, look at what you want to do and then reverse engineer. Like, how are you going to get there? Where are you right now? What are these steps?
You said something really, really important. We all know how to go backwards, don't we?
Yes.
We don't always know the steps to take moving forward. But when you just said reverse engineer it, that becomes a very, very, very cool thing to do because without that plan, it's a dream, right? Without that plan, you're going to be, if you don't have a plan, you'll be part of somebody else's.
Yes, yes,
So
absolutely.
how
If
do
you're
you
not
reverse
building your
engineer?
dreams, you're building somebody else's. So you really want to be able to focus and take that big thing. And sometimes what happens to us, and I see this all the time, I saw in the coaching, is we all have these big dreams and these big goals, right? But they get so overwhelming. They seem too big. So then we get so bogged down with the, I don't know how I'm going to get it. So we don't start, right? So, because it's just so big, you're standing at the bottom of, these big steps and you're looking up like, oh my God, it's too high. Or you're at the bottom of the mountain and you're trying to figure out, oh my God, it's too high. How on earth am I going to get there? Instead of looking at that first step and getting ready to take that first step. So if you know where you want to go, you see that big mountain, don't think about the how. Think about the why and the what. How does that feel? How does that look? And then the how, those steps they become easier to see. So don't focus on the how. Don't get bogged down by the how, and just take it one step at a time. You see that big goal, you can reverse engineer it into little goals. But what do you need to do first? What is
So
it?
let me interrupt you because
Okay.
we can deep dive into this and then overwhelm our audience. So let's
Yes.
give them the smaller bites, okay?
Yes.
So when you talk about reverse engineering, you understand that, okay, so let's just say let's just name a goal. I'm going to leave this current job and I'm going to go out on my own. There's the big goal. Then you said something really important. The why. Why do you want to do it? Why do you want to do it? Why do you want to do it? Because if your why is not big enough, you'll hit that snooze that says, nah, stay in bed, sleep a little longer. It won't make you get up and put those feet on the floor and start marching to that new tune of yours. That's why it's really important to have a why. What is your big why, LeaAnn? Why did you want to start a new business?
So my big why, I was a single mom of my girls for many, many years.
I can relate.
And I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired. I
What does
was
that mean?
overworked.
That's sort of a cliche. What does that mean? Sick and tired of being sick and tired.
I was sick. Let me rephrase that. I was exhausted, and I was exhausted trying to build other people's dreams, making stuff happen for other people, and number one, not getting any reward. And it's not about the acknowledgement, but sometimes it's good to know that you're a part of something. Does that make sense? If you're doing all of this work and other people are taking credit for it, it tends to kind of piss you off a little bit.
Well, and I think that too, as an entrepreneur, we tend to work longer. I was asking somebody the other day, how many days off does an entrepreneur take? They don't, because even when they're off and they're doing an event or they're on this quote mini vacation where you've taken the girls somewhere, you're answering emails, text messages, you're making phone calls, you've got your phone out and you're doing a video to tell people how brilliant this downtime is. We're working ourselves to death.
Yes.
But if you aren't having fun doing it, you'll burn out, you'll become overwhelmed. So what are some of the things that you do to make sure that you're not in that state of mind of overwhelm? What was it for you that you said, okay, that's it, I'm not going to do this anymore. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to go do it for me and have fun. What was it that what was the straw that broke the camel's proverbial back?
Well, for me, it was more about the opportunity. I had one of the big things that kept me there for so long was I felt that I was needed. I felt that which it's nice to be needed. Let's be real. We all want to be needed. So for me, it was a mindset thing. It really was. And, you know, when you're starting a business, and I have those 5 keys to starting a business, the biggest thing you have to work on is your mindset. Because if you don't have the right mindset and you don't get in that way of thinking of a business owner and an entrepreneur, nothing else matters. Nothing else you do will help. You need to have that mindset straight, right? And I was in that mindset that I was needed. I couldn't leave because they couldn't do it without me. And, you know,
How did you transition from they need me to I need me more?
Good question. I really, again, it kind of goes back to the opportunity. It took me, I don't even know, to be honest with you, if I thought that even at the time I left. It was there, the thought was there, and I knew that I needed to do something. It's all in that self-care and that mindset and putting ourselves first. You know, I was so busy. I was the last person I thought about in life, but to me, honestly,
And don't we as women, we as moms tend to be like that kind of anyway,
we are
until we're either exhausted or we're sick, or you know we finally have some sort of a breakdown before we have a breakthrough.
Yeah.
I hope that didn't have to happen to you, but you have some really awesome things that you talk about, and some of the things that you talk about in not only just the the mindset, but in this starting a new business. If you have an existing business, what could you tell our listeners that they could be doing to look at and assess, where am I and can I go there? Because I think we ask ourselves a lot of questions of, I think deep inside every woman is this sense of, I've got to have security. I've got to know that I can take care of myself, and I need to be able to take care of my family, which is sometimes what that why is. You already talked about that a minute ago. That why for you were your girls. For me, the same thing, but they grow up and they move out. And so then what do you do now? Now you need a new why?
Yeah. So when I left, again, it was about the opportunity. The opportunity came and I finally just said, screw this. I'm done. I'm doing it. Right. So it was time.
What have I got
was
to lose,
working
right?
on it. I was building the business. It was just time. The opportunity was there. I'm like, yeah, enough of this crap. I'm done.
Did you abandon the things and the skill set that you already have, or did you take that skill set and go do something new with it?
So I started out doing the coaching. And what happened when I was doing the coaching and coaching clients, I realized, because I'm gonna be honest with you, when I left there, I was so burnt out, so sick of looking at numbers and all of that. I said, if I ever look at another set of numbers, I may go jump off a cliff or something.
No, don't do that.
I didn't want to do that anymore. I was done. But what happened is, in my coaching, I realized the women I was working with, they had no clue how much money they were making, where their money was coming from, and where it was going. You would get to the end of the year.
How is that even possible? Honest to God, seriously?
Seriously. So that's when I decided to kind of go back to the roots. And now I'm in the unique position where I have the bookkeeping experience and the knowledge and the accounting, and now I have the coaching. So now I can help with those bigger goals, and how can we take these numbers and plan and look at the profit strategies and plan. So when you go to your accountant at the end of the year and he tells you you've made $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 a year, and you don't have any money left over to show for it, that doesn't happen. We can plan for that ahead of time.
So in a new startup, and I coach a lot of people in real estate and in new businesses, but particularly real estate. And I tell them, you may be new to agenting, but you've got to have a commitment to it. So one is the plan. The second is the commitment to the plan. In that commitment, I also tell them that they need to plan for 6 months of no income while they're building their prospecting and their pipeline and doing the other things. What kind of advice do you tell your ladies that you're coaching that are looking to transition out of what they were doing, or even to just start anew if they don't have any clue how much money they're making?
Yeah, so that's a really good point, because without funding, and that's one of the things that's one of the key things to starting a business. You need funding. No matter, that funding can come from a lot of different places. And actually, one of the biggest places you can get your funding from is keeping your job. That is money you are never going to have to pay back. Yes, it can be hard and draining, and I think that's part of the reason I stuck it out so long, because I had that extra funding because you still need to be making money, and I say it takes at least 2 years oftentimes to see a profit in business. And you still need that funding. So wherever that funding is coming from, whether it's a loan, line of credit, family, a job, you need to have that plan in place. And I think you mentioned 6 months, but definitely for 6 months, that's just because, especially if you're leaving your job, you not only have your business that you want to support, you now have your family you want to support, your household income, if you don't have support from family. So you have to look at funding your business, but also funding your household. So where are you going to get that money from? And there's a lot of places to get that money. But
I like
that's
the idea of free money. That free money, which is you're trading time for money.
Yes.
So it doesn't feel free when you're working it. But I'll tell you, when you have to pay back a loan that's now got interest, and have you seen the interest rates on a credit card, you don't want to go there, right? So keeping that day gig and doing a side hustle. At what point, when they start to make a little bit of money, does it feel safe? And we're always thinking about how, is it safe? Is it safe? Is it safe for me to leave the job? Do I have the security? What kind of advice would you give to our listeners when they're starting out a new business?
Honestly, that is going to be a personal decision for you. And again, you have to look at everything. You have to look at that big picture. You have to look at how much money you need for your business, how much you need personally. And I wouldn't recommend leaving the job if that's how you're funding your business and supporting yourself and your family, until you have at least 2, 3, maybe even 6 months of money saved up in case something happens, because business can be great. And then we all saw this in COVID a few years ago. Business can be great, but shit happens, stuff happens, and tragedy happens. You can get sick. Something like COVID can hit, a pandemic. There's a number of things that can happen. So you want to make sure that you're planning ahead. You need to have money set aside. If you're making money, when you're making your money, you should be setting aside money in a rainy day fund. And, that may be a percentage every week or every month, but you take that money, you set aside, and you have it there. Something happens in your house that could be a large, the furnace goes out, that's $10,000. So make sure that you have those funds set aside, or you have somebody in your life, which I was very fortunate to. By the time I left, you have somebody in your life that says, I got you. I'm going to help you. Let's do this. I'm here for you. But not everybody's, I was not that lucky for many, many years. So you need to make sure
and is it lucky, or is it just, the circumstances that you find yourself in? But I think that, you're talking about, whether you have a spouse, whether you're male or you're female, females and males are hooked up a whole lot differently. Men want to provide. They want to have that significance of being able to provide for the family. So I think it would be harder from our listeners' perspectives for them to for the guys listening, that they would be able to lean on somebody and say, yeah, okay, you've got me. I think that's a tougher thing. And I think that goes to the mindset that you were just talking about, because, we as women want that security and that assurance. It's a little bit more natural for us to lean on somebody. Well, it's a little bit more natural for women in general. I would say it would be very uncomfortable for me, because I've been a solo act for so long. I don't know how to behave in a relationship anymore. So to lean on somebody, I would go, are you sure you're going to catch me? But the 6 months, or you don't even need a disaster to happen like COVID or the furnace going out. I would say that as an entrepreneur, when you get busy and you've got coaching, or you've gone out and you've been speaking, you're doing events, and you get a couple of new clients, and you're so busy doing this, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, I just fulfilled that 6-month obligation with them, and you're looking around going, well, where are the new clients? I don't see them. I don't know where they are. And I think that, you just talked about, saving and setting aside. How about planning for and doing and actually budgeting time for prospecting? How does that work?
So you definitely want to be doing revenue generating activities on a daily basis, so you don't get into that situation you were just talking about, because it is easy
What's
to
the
get
difference?
sucked in.
Wait a minute. You just touched on a hot topic, and we're going to stay there for a second, okay? Doing a money generating activity. Now, we get busy as entrepreneurs. We're thinking, oh, well, I made a couple of phone calls and I chatted, and then I got onto Facebook and I did a couple of things. Talk to me about the difference of just busy and revenue generating activity.
So revenue generating activities, the way I look at those are the things that you talked about, right? It's getting on Facebook. It's doing something like we're doing, where you're like getting in front of other people's audiences. You're speaking, you're networking, you're putting yourself out there, and you're following up. A huge thing, and people don't always like doing this, is that follow up. A revenue generating activity is something that is going to bring you in leads to keep building a list, whether you have a list online or you have a list on a pad and paper or Excel spreadsheet. You need to keep bringing in those leads. And that, some people may have a much higher conversion than others. But that's something to look at. And that's something that's kind of a personal best for yourself, or how you're working things. But really anything like that, anything you're doing online, Facebook posts, emails, telephone calls, those are going to be the biggest thing that you're going to be able to do. But to do that, you need to have somebody to call, right? So that's where those revenue generating activities come from. Putting out a freebie to people to add them to your list. So then you have that lead to follow up on. And I've heard so many different numbers of how many times you have to actually touch a potential client before they become a client. I'm going to say you're probably talking at least 7 times to touch one person before they would know, like, and trust you. Because if people don't know, like, and trust you, they are not going to work with you. So all of these revenue generating activities, that's what you're doing. You're building those factors, that know, like, trust factor. Because if they know you, they like you, they trust you, they're more willing to work with you. You can go on and on and on talking about this too. So I don't know what time we have left.
Let's talk about investing in yourself. How much money over, say, a 2 to 3 year period should you be spending on investing in yourself, whether it's taking courses, whether it's, an application, software, lead generation tools, lists, or even sponsorships? Where should you be spending your money?
So one of the things I like to look at when we're looking at profit strategy is I'm a firm believer that any money you are spending should be making you either more money, time, or just saving you that stress factor. So you're not stressing, losing sleep, that kind of thing. So every dollar you're spending, you need to think about what is the return on investment for this? Whether you are investing in a coach, whether you are investing in a CRM system, a customer relationship management system, whether you're investing in a website. How many people start a business like, oh, I need a LLC, I need a website, I need business cards, I need this, and this. Is that stuff going to be making you money? So I'm going to be honest, I don't know.
People determine that, LeaAnn? I mean, when you're thinking about, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to start coaching, and hopefully it's based on something that you already have some expertise in and something that you know a lot about. You are out there networking and finding people, finding your tribe, people that need what you have. I always like to say, make sure that you understand what problem you solve, right? Because if you don't have a problem to solve, people don't really need whatever it is that you're selling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't solve that, if you can't answer that problem, what is that problem? Who has it? How does it show up? What happens when they don't fix that problem? Do your clients always know that they have a problem that you're solving?
A problem that I am solving?
Right. So when you're talking to your prospects, you obviously are going to be saying something that resonates with them. It isn't just that you're building rapport, you're communicating with them on some level about some quality or the value of what it is that you're teaching. So can you talk to me about that for a second?
So here's what I do. When I think this is more like a marketing thing. When you're talking to people, the best way to know how to touch your ideal client is from history. What are your ideal clients saying? What do you hear them saying? What are your past clients saying that you have solved for them? Like, what are their pain points? And that's what I do. I try and touch those pain points of the people that I am currently working with, have worked with, or, that ideal person that you're working with. And the only way to really know that is, number one, you have been there yourself. So you know what the pain is because you've lived it, you've been through it, you've solved it for yourself, or getting out there and talking to people that have those pains, have those needs. And the more specific you can be on that person, I mean, obviously the more specific your marketing is and the people you can reach, and the more targeted your investment can be. So, getting back to the investment piece a little bit, the more targeted that investment can be and knowing what you need, the more return you're going to get on that. So I think the biggest thing on that is just knowing who you want to work with, knowing what problem you solve. And if you don't know what problem you solve, the biggest thing I would look at is, what are your pains? What are you struggling with? And that's where I would start, because honestly, if you have a need or if you have a pain point that you're not finding a solution for, you may be that solution. So if that's where you are and you're at that very, very first starting point, maybe that's where you start looking at what pains you're having. And
sometimes we don't
how
want
can
to
you
really
solve
look
them?
at our own pain.
And again, you may have to reach out. What's that?
I said, sometimes we don't want to look at our own pain. We would rather look at somebody else's pain, right? So that brings me to another topic.
That's very true.
It brings me to another topic. Saved by Grace, Opening Doors for Wounded Women Walking, a book. Was that a problem that you solved of your own, or did you find other women had an issue. I always like to think of the Walking Wounded, right? What was that book about?
So that book actually goes back to, I had an Adopt a Mom program that I started when my mom was very sick, as a way to kind of boost spirits in the family. Christmas was always her favorite holiday. And it kind of sucked because we knew it was going to be her last Christmas because she was really sick. So that was my way of doing something, is we adopted at that year 10 local moms who were single moms or had kids sick with cancer, that kind of thing. And so this book actually came from that program. That program grew where I think right now we're well over 500 moms. I actually haven't done it the last year. But what happened is I started donating to shelters, and I came across this one shelter who it was a shelter for women who were overcoming addiction, or some sort of addiction, abuse. There was various things, but I think the biggest thing was addiction. It was a faith-based shelter, and they wanted to share their stories. So that's what that book is it was an opportunity for them to share their stories and to help other people see that there's light at the other end of the tunnel,
And it's
and
not
how
around
they
training.
overcame and how they can help, what they can do. So that's where that book came from.
That's beautiful. That really is. You didn't just write one book though. You have a couple of books.
So I do. I'm a part of quite a few anthologies. Divas was one. Driven Individual Visionaries Accomplishing Success, with Savannah Moore, who is a dear friend of mine. I have a Chocolate and Diamonds mom book. I honestly, this is probably horrible for me to say, but I don't remember what they all are. But there's probably like 5 or 6 of them at this point. But they're, oh my goodness. Is it sad? I cannot remember what they all are. That is probably very sad.
I feel the same. I've been in many compilation books, and where you've written a chapter, and that's a great way to start if you've never written anything. Yes. Coming up with 1,500 words to write, sounds like an easy task until you sit down in front of the computer, and now you are tasked with actually writing it out. I think AI, ChatGPT, makes things a lot easier to come up with ideas, not copy what ChatGPT tells you, but put it in your own vernacular, talking to ChatGPT like it was a friend. But back in only a couple of years ago, because look, ChatGPT's only been out for a little bit less than a year, if you can even imagine. We can't imagine life without a cell phone. Well, I think we're kind of at that point with ChatGPT as well. But when you're first starting out, getting into compilation books is a great place to start. It also gives you a sense of credibility and authority because you're speaking on a subject that you know really well. But the subject that you speak about really right now has a few tips, and I think you even have a giveaway for it. Talk to me a little bit about what those 5 points are.
Okay, so basically like the 5 key aspects to getting started in a business, and I think that's what we're going to give away today, and touch base on them a little bit. The first thing, and we talked about this a little bit, is mindset. And that's the first thing you really need to get right in your head, is because when things go to crap, which they will, it happens in business. One of the key things, if you don't work, you don't get paid. It's not like you get paid time off from a job anymore. If you're not working, you're not getting paid. And when you're not getting paid, you're going to need to know why you're doing this. What is your why is one of the biggest things to wrap your head around in the mindset. That's what is going to push you through when things go to crap. The next thing is planning, having a plan in place. Failing to plan is basically planning to fail. If you don't have a solid business plan, I think we talked about it a little bit earlier, having that goal without a plan, it's just another dream. You need to have that plan in place. In that plan, some of the other things, the 3 other things we talk about is funding. Where are you going to get your funding from? Are you going to keep your job to get you started? Do you have investors, whether they're family, friends, or outside investors? Are you going to take out a loan? The different types of loans, there's a difference between taking out a loan where you have to pay interest on the full amount, taking out a line of credit where you can borrow money as you need it, so you're only paying interest as you need it. Credit cards, I'm not huge on building up debt, and I hate to encourage people, but it's hard to run a business without having some sort of, it kind of comes with entrepreneurship a little bit. You are going to have to use some sort of credit oftentimes, unless you have a lot of money put aside, or if you have money in an IRA, or if you have like family and friends investors, angel investors, those kind of things, you're going to have to get started with credit. If you need money that you're going to pay back in a couple weeks, use a credit card, because you use the credit card, you pay it off when it's due, there's no interest. So there's different tricks to finding funding and how to use credit appropriately. Also having a business structure. Are you going to start out as a sole entrepreneur, an LLC, a corporation? Those, making sure you're well versed on those, knowing the difference. If you have to talk to an attorney, talking to an attorney to know what differences are, what's going to work best for you. And the next thing is having that financial structure. What is your chart of accounts going to look like? How are you going to be tracking your income? How are you going to be tracking your expenses, so that at the end of the year,
you just put a magic word, chart of accounts. What in the heck is that?
So I always look at the chart of accounts is your blueprint for your business. And I don't want to blow anybody's minds or overwhelm anybody, because chart of accounts is really kind of a big topic. But the biggest thing is your assets, which are your bank accounts, your vehicles, buildings, anything like that as an asset. Your liabilities are credit cards, loans. We'll stick with those because they're easy.
Yeah, let's not get too complicated, because I think we'll lose a few people.
Yes, I don't want to lose our bookkeeping. Is boring. People glaze over, they're done.
Well,
but
it isn't really boring, because when you think about the money that you're making and the money that you're spending, putting it into the right buckets. I know some people make the system so simple that they only have envelopes, right? That's how they budget. So they say, okay, for my utilities, it's going to be, $235, and they put the $235 in there. If there's money left over, it goes into another envelope that says, these are my savings. We don't have to overcomplicate it. Whatever it is, whatever your system is, it's got to be more than just a cocktail napkin, right?
It definitely does. The last two and the more important pieces that we're talking about right now is your profit and your expenses. The income and the expenses, those are going to be your key things, because when you're starting out, you may not have a lot of assets. You may have that's a huge topic that you really have to dig into. But knowing where your money is coming from and knowing where you are spending it, that's how you are going to be able to strategize. Look at your goal. How much money do I have to make per hour? How much money do I have to make in this package? If you have a package of $997, how many clients do you have to reach that goal?
There's the simple math. Make it really simple, because when we as women tend to complicate things very, very quickly. And when we complicate them, it's very easy to get into the overwhelm. We want to keep it simple. Keep it really simple, because if you overcomplicate it, you'll keep saying, well, I'm not quite ready yet, and I'm not ready to do this, and I need to have that, and I need to get that, and I need to have this piece of software, and I need to have that over here, and I have to have spoken on these stages at least 6 times before I can actually go out and do something. See how we just complicated it? Keep it really simple. For me, it's a telephone or it's a connection here on Zoom. It's networking, it's talking in, and don't forget those opportunities that come from speaking with people like you, where I would say to you, LeaAnn, are there other people that you could recommend to me, or organizations or groups that you've spoken to that need the kind of service that I provide? Don't be afraid to ask, because it's all in the ask. So before we wrap up today, I want to let our listeners know, how do they find you?
So you can find me basically on Facebook, on my website. It's Fuller Path to Profits. You can set up a time to talk to me. I do strategy sessions to look at where you're at, to see where you want to go. Look at the big picture, see where you're at. How do you get there? Those kind of things. And, the one thing I do want to say that goes back to what everything we've really said, and this is not one of my 5 steps. This is like a bonus step. And when we get overwhelmed, the biggest thing you can do is take action. One step at a time.
It seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? I'm overwhelmed, so I'm just going to do nothing. I'm just going to stop, and I'm going to do absolutely nothing, and I'm going to stay in place. Why is that important to take a step?
Because if you do not take that initial step, a year from now, you're going to be sitting exactly where you are right now. Just like I was before I got started. I kept saying in July, and the next July, I was still there. You have to take action, whether it is just picking up the phone and talking to one person. Your connections, you just talked about connections, are priceless. They're going to be one of your, talk about assets. Your connections are going to be one of your biggest assets, and they don't cost you a damn thing. So
no, it does cost you something. It costs you something if you don't take advantage of it. If you never reach out to those people, if you never tell people, I'm doing this now, people will never know. They're not going to be out on YouTube or on Facebook looking for you. What is LeaAnn doing now? No, you got to get out there and start telling them, I'm here. This is what I do. I'm a wealth building strategist. This is my goal, is to help you build your future. If you never tell anybody, you're going to be the best kept secret. And why do you want to do that?
I was just going to say, you do not want to be the world's best kept secret. You need to talk to people. You need to make those. But again, just taking action, that's really what being in business is all about. Small actions, big actions. But if you are not taking any action, you're going to be exactly where you are right now. You're not going to move forward. That's the thing. We look at that big picture. We look at the overwhelm, and we get stuck in that how. So we do nothing. And like you said,
I think it's an old Chinese proverb. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So just, write it down, write your goal down, write and understand, where do I want to, where am I right now? Where do I want to go? And how many steps is it going to take? Don't put in 1,000 miles of steps. Remember what the goal is, the big goal. Why do you want to do it? And then work backwards, because we're real good at that, aren't we? LeaAnn, yes. You said you had 5 points. How do my listeners get that?
So yes. Where would you like me to share that at?
Let's see. Put that into the comments, and then Karen can put it onto the Facebook or onto our live stream. And then I think, Ron, you should be able to pick that up and put that into a banner really quick, if you can get that into the comments. We'll put that there.
So you can opt in there. You will get the 5 steps to the strong foundation. I touched base on them really quick. This gives you a little bit more in depth. more detail. And, if it's something you're interested in talking about a little bit more, please feel free to reach out to me. My email address is, it's my name, LeaAnn at welcometoyourfullerlife.com. But again, it may be easier just to do it right through my website, to book a call, to contact me, and we can set something up through there. So
we'll make it really simple. Go out to her website, go find her, go get your free download of the 5 steps and Fuller Path to Profits with LeaAnn. LeaAnn, I want to thank you for joining me today. It's been a pleasure to have you. And to all of our listeners, if you want to know more about how to get yourself on a faster path to cash, reach out. Thank you, LeaAnn.
Thank you for having me, and thanks for joining us.
You're so welcome. So that wraps us up today for another episode of Money Talk. Join us next week or take a look at some of our past ones because we've had some really incredible guests on this show. Welcome and thank you for joining us, and I'll see you next week.
Do you like to talk about money? If you do and you'd like to be a guest, contact me at lindakay360.com.